you should see where she's coming from, because you yourself have used derogatory language on a regular basis to the point where your family had to check you on it. Like, I'll never get past that. How dare you? Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host, Pinky, and today we're going to be talking about Lauren and Orion from Married at First Sight. So if you'd like to see more, then just stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. Y'all, this video is more so like a rant than it is a review. So if y'all looking for step-by-step, me talking about the other couples, that's not happening, okay? Because I'm just here to get this up off my chest. If y'all follow my channel, you already know that I decided to review this season of Married at First Sight. I thought it was going to be my last season of reviewing the show. Y'all, I don't know that I'm going to be able to review this season, especially watching what's going on with Lauren and Orion. I fell behind with the show the past few weeks. I've been dreading watching it. I literally forced myself to watch these last few episodes. I watched them at 2x speed, just trying to get through them. It's agonizing. It's literally painful. It's cringy. It's annoying to watch the show. It's long past not being entertaining. It's just like a chore. It's like taking unnecessary medicine, or it's a pill. Like, I see why so many people say they only watch reviews. They don't necessarily watch the show. And y'all, it's not just one thing. It's not just the fact that these people have it mismatched. It's the editing. It's how long the show is. There's no need for the show to be 2 hours long. Y'all, it's been 7 episodes and we're still on the honeymoon. There are not even that many couples left. Okay, we've been reduced down to 4 couples and y'all still trying to stretch this out. It's so annoying. Honestly, the only storyline that I even care to talk about right now is the Lauren and Orion storyline. And honestly, that's because it's got my blood boiling. I am so I'm so irritated with Orion. I truly feel like he's not only gaslighting Lauren, he's gaslighting the experts, he's gaslighting the audience. I cannot believe how far this has gone. When in reality, I feel like he's making excuses because he doesn't want to be married to Lauren for whatever reason, whether it's physical attraction, whether he's just not attracted to her in general. I don't know, but I feel like he's not man enough to say that. So he's using everything else that he can find as an excuse and gaslighting her. Smile in your face whole time he want to leave this place. Gaslighter. I feel like he's really manipulative, but we're going to get into that. I'm going to go from episodes 4 through 7 and we're going to talk about, you know, how they got to the point where they are now. Now, when they first got married, I really do think that Orion might have been attracted to her. He might have been hopeful, unless he was just a really good actor. I do feel like he might have been interested, but at some point he changed his mind, because I just feel like on the honeymoon he was very uncomfortable. You could tell he was holding back. It's like she was more into him than he was into her, and she was initiating a lot of the physical touch, the kisses, things like that. And he would play into it, but I just don't think he was as into it as he was portraying himself to be. Now, usually I would say, let's take the Becca and Austin approach. Let's save all the deep conversations for when we get back into reality. Let's just enjoy the honeymoon. I hate when the couples come on a honeymoon and want to jump into these deep conversations. Y'all are on a free vacation. Let's enjoy it. It just felt like social justice warrior Twitter conversations, like exhausting. Like, did we really have to go down this rabbit hole on the honeymoon? But low key, it was a blessing in disguise for Lauren. So once again, they're trying to have these deep conversations, and she asked him, has he ever said the N-word? Now, in this case, I think that was a good question. I am not single, but if I were, and I were to date someone that was not of my race, that would be a question that I would ask. That's something I would have to know. I would have to know. You know, just as like a little temperature check, and then you gauge their reaction and you move accordingly. So she asked him, had he ever said the N-word? And he said yes. And he said that he used to sing along with it in songs, and it got so bad that his family had to check him about it. I feel like she didn't ask enough follow-up question, because my next question would have been like, yes, you said you used it in song. How long ago was that? 2, since you use the word so often, have you ever used it in anger against someone in my community? Whether you said it to their face or behind their back. Have you ever referred to someone in the Black community as the N-word? Because I ain't gonna lie, as soon as he would have said yes, I would have been very offended. You know, I guess depending upon what his answer is, but at the end of the day, that would have probably most likely been a deal breaker for me. And I'm gonna have to say deuces, because what? You might have a little bit of some of that in you still. I'm not gonna subject my family or my future children to whatever possible racism. By the way, you guys, I will be using replacement words for sensitive topics that trigger the algorithm on YouTube and will cause me to be demonetized. But y'all will know what I'm saying. Just use context clues. You will be surprised how people can enter into interracial relationships, be discriminatory against the culture of the person that they're with, and like look at them as, oh, you're one of the good ones, or even worse, condescending towards them, thinking they're better. It's called cognitive dissonance, and it happens. She was very gracious, because if that would have been me in that situation, y'all would have hated me, because it would have been a wrap. There's nothing else that needs to be said. I'm done. Thank you for your time. I gotta go. I cannot. She kind of playfully checked him, saying like, let me punch you for my ancestors. Maybe she didn't want to be the stereotype. Maybe she just didn't want to feel like she was over the top with it. Maybe she felt like he learned from it and moved past it. Then she tried to be relatable with him and say, you know, there are many words that I've said before in the past that I did not know that they were offensive. I get where she was trying to go with that, but it's not the same thing. Everybody knows the N-word is offensive. Come on now. Everybody knows the history of that word. Everybody knows that that's a racially charged word, and it's not something that you should just throw around in everyday conversation. Everybody knows that. Now, he did ask her, has she ever said a derogatory term? I'm just going to say the R word, because personally, I don't want to say it, because I don't want to be offensive towards the Native American community, because I would hate for someone to say a derogatory word towards my community. I'm just going to avoid that altogether and just say the R word. So he was like, well, have you ever said the R word? She said she never said it before, and she just didn't know why it was even said until she saw his face, and she was referring to the fact that he had a sunburn. She was joking, and she was repeating what he said. I do think it was kind of like a nervous reaction to what he said. I do think it was in poor taste, but I don't think that it was malicious. You know, she said she never even heard the word before. She never used it. And I think she, like I said, it was like a word vomit type of thing. I don't think she was trying to be nasty, but he was greatly offended by what she said. And I'm not even going to say he should not have been offended, because that word is highly offensive to Native American people. And he explained how Native Americans were scalped by colonizers, and, you know, it was said that their scalp was more valuable than gold, and that's the origin. And, you know, she said, I never knew. And immediately apologized, because as a Black woman, she knows how people can use our pain as a joke. And a lot of times in the Black community, we even make a joke out of, you know, highly sensitive and painful things. And sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's not, but it is what it is. That's kind of what we do in our community. Sometimes we can find humor in our pain and oppression. She kind of explained that to him, and was very apologetic, and, you know, wasn't trying to hurt him in any way or be offensive. But he was still bristled up, angry and upset. And she was like, well, Cameron, earlier on the trip, Cameron said something offensive. Instead of saying that they can't leave the resort, he said they can't leave the reservation, and he looked directly at Orion when he said it, and Orion was offended by that, and he called out the ignorance of it. But at the end of the day, they kind of brushed it off, laughed it off. And Cameron, after that, even made a joke about having willful ignorance, which I thought was even more offensive. And I probably would have been like, well, you think that's funny? It made it feel like it was a purposeful, offensive joke. But they let that slide. She was like, you let a white man say all that. But with me, you know, I wasn't trying to be offensive to you at all. I was just kind of repeating what you said. And now you have all this animosity towards me. And she was like, well, how do you decide if you're truly offended or if it's a joke? And he's like, it's the delivery. And it's like, you know, that woman didn't mean no harm. What I didn't understand is that you sat up there and said that you said the N word so many times your family had to get onto you. And she gave you grace for that, but you can't give her grace for this situation. Ever since that moment, it's kind of been downhill for them, except he puts on a front as if everything is okay. And we're going to get to it. So after that whole ordeal, she gave him space, and, you know, they came back together, and he claims he's not angry about it. He acts like they can work through it and everything is fine, and really just giving her a false sense of security. They're hanging out with other couples, and he's talking about how much he cares about her and how much of a great partner she's been to him already. They're kissing and touching and everything else. So then the conversation of intimacy comes up. He said it's been 1.5 years since he's done the do, and she said it's only been 2 months for her. Immediately his face changed, his demeanor changed. You know, he basically said once he started the process, he considered himself engaged, and he wasn't just going to hand himself out to anyone after that. He was committed to the process, alluding to the fact that she wasn't. And she was like, well, once I found out that I was chosen, I didn't continue that any further. Like, I guess she did it like right before she found out. And, you know, he felt a way about that. And because it's only been 2 months, he took intimacy off the table. Whereas before they were discussing whether or not they were going to do it. The irritating thing about that is he tried to act like that's not why he took intimacy off the table, when clearly it is. Like, as soon as she said that, well, now we're not going to do it. But this whole time, he's gaslighting and manipulating her and trying to act, no, that's not why. She called him out. She kept her foot on his neck and did not let him get by with that lie. And I'm so glad she stood up for herself. They were having a little back and forth about it, and she was just like, look, let's just eat in silence, because if you ain't gonna be honest, if you ain't gonna be real, I don't even want to keep going with this conversation right now. And you know, he kept pushing the issue, kept pushing it, and pushed her to the point of tears where she was crying. She was just like, can we just table this and pick it up later? Like, it's like he was trying so hard to make her believe this lie. Later on, they're in bed and they're trying to have the conversation again. He said, I'm sorry if you felt. I'm sorry if you felt is not an apology. You know that, and I know that, and I'm not accepting it, right? Mind you, she's not getting loud. She's not raising her voice. She's just being stern and standing her ground and setting her boundaries. She was holding his feet to the fire and just not letting him weasel out of it. It's like, man up. You said what you said. Stand on it. Finally, she was able to push him to admit that he was judging her for the fact that she did the do 2 months before they got married. He let it be known that he feels she was not intentional with this process. When you say stuff like, I would never do anything like that, it shows how you feel about it. It shows that you're being condescending, and it implies judgment. So he's trying to act like, no, that's not what I said, but you implied it. At the end of the day, I feel like he was using that as an excuse, though. I feel like he's just not attracted to her. He didn't want to be intimate with her, and this was his excuse. Period. I feel like he's jumping on any little thing because there's nothing major going on here between them. They're just two strangers getting to know each other. He won't be honest about the fact that he doesn't like her. I don't know if it's because she's black. I don't know if it's because he's just not attracted to her, period. I don't know. But you don't want to be with her, and now you're using every little thing. You're playing the victim so you can have an excuse as to not being in this marriage when you should just be honest about it. He's worse than the I'm a good person, Alyssa. I don't like the picture he's trying to paint of her. He's trying to assassinate her character. At some point, he does apologize to her for treating her like a stranger and not a husband. And that didn't last long. At some point, they sit down with Dr. Pia, and he's once again playing victim in this session. At some point, he says, well, I think the reason why I acted that way is because I always have to defend my mother and sister against my stepfather. What did that have to do with anything? Like, I didn't see the correlation at all. I've rewinded that part like 3 times. I was like, what? What does that have to do with anything? He's on the verge of tears and flipped it on her and acting like she was just so loud and aggressive when they were having their arguments. I was like, I do not remember where she raised her voice at him one time. She was not attacking him. She was not aggressive. She was just holding him accountable. After that, they meet up with the other couples. She's giving public apologies. I got so tired of her apologizing. Like, every time we turn around, she was apologizing for one thing or another. Things she already apologized for. Now she's giving public apologies in front of everybody, even though they never actually told the group what went down. Just apologizing. I'm like, girl, it's like he's slowly like breaking down her self-esteem. So even after that public declaration of her being wrong and apologizing and everything, he decides that he's offended from the R word comment. You gonna circle back to that because the intimacy thing didn't work because you were technically like slut shaming her. So you knew that was gonna make you look bad and you couldn't stand on that. So you had to circle back to the R word comment, even though she's apologized multiple times for that. He says that that situation made him feel like a minority in his own marriage. This whole thing is just so unfair and so unreasonable. And honestly, at this point, I just would have been done. I wouldn't even stuck around to this point, but definitely right here when he pulled this back up, I would have been done because the repercussions do not match the offense. Especially after she gave you grace, after you in your past were purposefully offensive. They have an off-camera argument and we see her breaking down, telling Claire about it. He's confronting her again for this situation and saying that she failed him in the marriage. And she got so upset that she snatched her ring off and asked for a divorce. Well, I did see a clip online. I didn't get a chance to watch After Party, but I did see online on a clip that she said that day he had took his ring off. He didn't draw attention to the fact that he took his ring off, but she saw that he took his ring off, and that is one of the things that made her want to take hers off in that moment because, oh, you just don't want to be with me. So she took her ring off, threatened divorce, and stormed out. At that point, he calls Pastor Cal, and this is the part that really made me mad. He made it seem to Pastor Cal that she kind of just brought up this. Y'all, I'm sorry that the lighting might be a little off. One of my lights went out. Anyway, he tried to make it seem to Pastor Cal that she made a derogatory term out of nowhere. Like, yeah, he brought up the R word, but she took the R word and just made an offhand crash joke. He never made any mention to the fact that you used to use the N word on a regular. And see, that's why I'm not falling for the offended act. Because you're not being honest and upfront, and you're letting her take the brunt of this racial, derogatory, insensitive, ignorant position when honestly it more so should fall on your shoulders. She should have been the one all offended and clutching her pearls and mad and threatening divorce over. That should have been her stance. But she gave you the grace to not be labeled that. And you're constantly trying to put that label on her and attack her character and make it seem as if she's just this raging racist woman. Pastor asked if she apologized and acknowledged the fact that what she said was out of line. Obviously, the answer is yes. He saw that that wasn't working. So then he said, she blew up on me and she asked for a divorce and she said she wasn't attracted to me and doesn't give me a chance to say what I want to say. And, you know, just saying everything he could to make her seem like the worst person in the world. It's like when she does give you a chance to speak, just like the whole slut shaming situation, you double speak. You'll forgive her, and then the next minute you're still offended, even though I thought we moved past that. You know what I'm saying? Like, your words don't mean nothing because you don't stand on them. So then Pastor Cal spoke with Lauren individually, and she took full accountability for the joke, once again apologizing. She's apologized like 50,000 times. And she said, yeah, it was wrong for me to ask for a divorce and take off my ring, but she was in her feelings and in the moment, and she doesn't actually want a divorce if they can work it out. So then Pastor Cal has them meet up together. As many times as she apologizes, she feels like he's not accepting her apology or seeing her remorse. And even Pastor Cal echoed that same sentiment. And he feels like he hasn't been able to truly express himself yet. So give him the floor to speak and say what's on his mind, child, since he claimed he can't say it. He was offended on behalf of his whole culture and his family. And how is he going to explain that to them? And it affects them on a much deeper level. As if Black people don't know the weight and the heaviness of derogatory terms. On top of that, she was already apologetic. She even said that she has been proactively trying to learn more about his culture. She's been Googling not just, you know, offensive words, but positive ones. And that's not good enough for him because he just cannot get past what she said. And he compared what she did to someone calling him an apple, meaning he's red on the outside and white on the inside. And yes, I'm sure that was very offensive to you. But whoever said that to you were trying to be nasty towards you. You know that woman was not trying to be nasty. You know she was not trying to be a jerk. You know she was not trying to hurt your feelings. At that point, she just ran out of the room sobbing because he's unfairly painting her as something that she's not and assassinating her character. Trying to act like whatever it is they're dealing with is so deep, he just can't move past it. And, you know, she's just this horrible person. I was livid. I was livid. My blood was boiling. I could not believe that he was trying to paint this Black woman like this. It was so unnecessary. And look, I'm not trying to overlook any sort of offense. Like, that's your culture. You're allowed to be offended. But if the person is apologetic and you know it didn't come from a bad place, she just repeating what you said in the first place. And you should see where she's coming from because you yourself have used derogatory language on a regular basis to the point where your family had to check you on it. Like, I'll never get past that. How dare you? Like, even if you don't want to be with her, how dare you do this to her on the way out? At least don't try to ruin her name. And I really feel like the experts really should have went back and watched the footage. I feel like they should have not just listened to what he had to say. They should have gotten the full scope of what happened because he's an expert at manipulating the situation, playing the victim, and gaslighting people into not seeing what the situation for what it actually is. I really hope that they get that divorce next week. I hope they don't move any further. She doesn't deserve this emotional turmoil moving forward, this mental anguish. He don't want to be with her. Let him go. As soon as he would have told me he says the N-word on a regular basis, there's nothing. What else needs to be said? I'm done. I'm out. And just the lack of care, the lack of grace in which he's handling this situation with just goes to show it might be a little bit of that still deep down inside of him, because there's no reason for him to be treating this woman this way. Especially you see her in tears and you just so stoic. You can't even see that the woman is apologetic and begging for your forgiveness. And you said that you forgave her and then you flipped the script on her I wish she would have told Pastor Cal that. I don't know that I'm going to continue to review this show, you guys. I might talk about next week's episode because I kind of want to see what's going to happen. But after that, I don't know. I don't know, y'all. I just can't do it anymore with this show. It's just, ugh. Oh. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this review down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I would love to hear your opinion. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll see you in my next one. Peace.